Hello and welcome to the RT Development Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rosignol, and I'm excited to have Dan Runzler back on the show. Dan's first episode was really, I think, a really good one. We got to go into a lot of broad topics, but today we're excited to dive into one more specific topic and within, and then go into some other things inside that specific topic. So I'm excited to dive in. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back on. I'm excited to talk and dig in a little bit more. Last time we talked more broad and had a bunch of different things that we talked about. And I think from people that I've heard from, got a really good response. And so now I'm excited to just dive in more and see, more of like some things that help guys, especially on the mindset side, kind of take those next steps. So obviously we know baseball in general is a very physical sport, but as I think the great not Louis Gehrig, it was whoever, I'm blanking on who said it, but it was the baseball is 90% mental, 10%
Yogi Berra.
Yogi Berra.
Yogi Berra, yep.
And so I think definitely I've seen more guys get in trouble on the mental side. They've had all the physical skills, but on the mental side, just it weighs them down and doesn't let them really show who they really are and the skills that they have. So, yeah, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it and some of the things that you've gone through, especially when it comes to some of the injury stuff, but also just like helping guys take that next step so they can get past that barrier.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great topic. I think over especially last probably I would say 6 to 10 years, it's become more of a topic that you can talk about openly. I feel like in years past and even early on in my career, like to admit that you were, mentally a little bit like you were questioning yourself, your abilities, what have you. It came off as weak and it came off as something you don't want to put out there because it can make you be viewed differently. I feel like the one good thing is it's been kind of openly recorded now, and now it's a part of it. And I know from personal experience, I know the San Francisco Giants employ both mental skills and mental health people, and I know for a fact that all other organizations do it as well. So it's something that's it's better to talk about, but it's more important on like as much as talent is a separator. Like I think mental talent is a separator as well.
100%. I think, well, it definitely is more talked about. It's definitely more just an open conversation. It seems like every organization has 3-4 guys on that side that are helping players and a place for the players to go and talk to. And so definitely more of importance. And I think, honestly, it can be a game changer. We have a person who helps our athletes and that talks with our athletes, and seen definitely a huge growth in the guys that do work with Ray, who has been on the podcast. So yeah, it definitely is a game changer. And I think when you start to understand and believe in it, as much as just as it's little things too. I mean, there's deeper conversations, but also just like how to properly mentally prepare for each pitch, each at bat, whatever it is, can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And one of the things I like to say too is like, if you show me a confident player, I'll show you a scary,
100%.
And most of the time it takes guys that are almost, you have to, in order for it to work in my mind, especially through my experience in watching now the next generation, is you have to be more confident when your back's against the wall than when everything's going right.
Absolutely. And I think even just watching this most recent World Series, like the belief that Yamamoto must have had to be able to go out there and pitch on back-to-back days under those circumstances, you have to really, one, be confident, trust your preparation and the work that you put in, and then two, just be willing to not back down.
And I think too as well, like I think confidence is exuded obviously when you see the result, when positive results come, because all sports, but if we're just specifying baseball, it's a result-based sport, as all sports are. So when you see results, you think everything. But for me, when you do your routine the same way every day, and you prepare the same way every day, and you go out the same way every day, and you see results, confidence builds from just you. I do this every day. This is how I get ready. This is how. So I think it starts to really just harden the mind to be like, I'm already players I play with, great ones I play with. Like I've heard a great few comments, but one of my favorite ones is like when I step, like I would look at a guy doing all of his preparation, even early on in the big leagues, like, wow, look, you're doing all this stuff and whatnot. But he said, I know when I step out on the field, even just to play catch, I've already outworked everybody else. So right there, there's the confidence knowing that he got his body right. He did his lifting correctly. He got everything ready before we even played catch to go into BP, to get to the game, to his part in the game when he was called upon himself. So just something like that, knowing that mentally he had already won in his mind, because before he even stepped out there to even do the hard stuff, he's already beating you before everybody else.
100%. So I think I have a few notes here on some things on, especially within how the mental game is important, some topics that we can kind of dive into. I think number one is when you, with guys, especially at the level that you've been at the last few years, and you could probably talk about guys at the big league level when you who you played with, who you saw guys come up and down. But what are like some of the differences you see in guys who climb versus who move up the ranks, and versus the ones who don't, or the ones who stick, get to the big leagues but can't stick, and the guys that are able to keep going?
Well, one of my favorite things too are the ones that kind of separate themselves. Is that was another great saying, is that you can play this game with emotion, but you can't be emotional. So when something big happens and you're fired up and everything like that, that's one thing. But if you miss with a pitch or you swing and miss and it's, oh, woe is me, if you're constantly riding that roller coaster, and you hear it more times, and I know that even the players I've coached, I keep giving them the same thing. You're gonna get sick of this, but it is such a long roller coaster season. But the guys that separate themselves use the emotion the right way, but don't get emotional after, understanding this is a game of failure. It's going to stink, but you got to move on pitch to pitch. I think it's the way they talk to themselves in their head as well. I think positive self-talk is a big thing. I think instead of sitting there doing one thing and something bad happening, now it's like, oh man, I'm not very good anymore. So it's just the way that you condition yourself to talk to yourself, little stuff like that. These guys that are unwavered, like, oh yeah, I beat this guy, broken bat hit, whatever it is, infield single. You're upset because you made your pitch, you sawed the guy off. It didn't do anything. It shouldn't be a hit in any category, but it is. So how are you going to change? The moment's over. Like, how can you short memory it? So the guys that I've seen excel the most and probably play at the highest level, some Hall of Famers, just some great career guys that I played with, were able to compartmentalize and just move on pitch to pitch. And I'm sure you say it in what you do. I know I say it, and it's so much easier said than done. But you got to understand what happened before you can't change. So if you're going to let it affect the way you are, and if your body language is going to suffer because of certain things, all you're doing is you're worried about, I can't tell you how many times on the mound, and I even see it at the plate, I watch at bats disappear at a 1-1 count because a guy throws a pitch, umpire like kind of squeeze them a little bit. Now the pitcher puts the head down there and the hitter's like, oh, look, now he's so upset about that one pitch that was probably a strike, but it got balled. Can't change it. So we're worried about that, moving on the next pitch. Same thing when a hitter swings and fouls the ball off just behind him, and he looks at me like, oh, and I could still see him squeezing his bat, and he's so upset that he just missed the pitch that he probably should have hit.
Sure.
But now he's giving the at-bat back to me. So it's the way that you go about it, the way that you understand too. Everyone wants to talk about the pitches you don't get, or the places where you were squeezed a little bit, but no one talks about the one that you threw right down the middle that you got away with, or
100%.
or the guy that laid out in the gap and saved you 3 earned runs. Like we don't remember those. We remember the ones that you know.
Absolutely.
So it's just kind of more of an accountability thing, but that pitch to pitch mentality is so elite, and I think the best players in the world do that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, and I think especially, obviously, we have, and I'll say a couple things. One, it's definitely a separator between our big leaguers who, when they're throwing their bullpens here, and their ability to know what they want to do, have that mental execution, and then obviously then perform that execution, but also understand whether it was what they wanted or not, they look at it, understand what they try to do. If they did it, great. Continue to build off that feeling. If not, their ability to, okay, this is what I need to do to make the adjustment versus a lot of the high schooler guys or guys who, um, not at that level are letting that one pitch affect the rest of their bullpen, and they can't get past that one pitch, and they're talking about the bad versus understanding, okay, this is the adjustment I need to make to take that next step, or to execute this pitch the next one, so we can make this a positive throughout the rest of the bullpen, versus you're at pitch 5 and you got a 20 pitch bullpen and you've already dug yourself in a hole, and now the rest of the bullpen's kind of just gone to waste.
And you'd be surprised to it, even at the level I'm at, with some of the great pitchers I've seen so far that have made their ways through the minor leagues, and they're already professionals, and they're on their journey. Some of them are still rolling and getting to the big leagues. But you'd be surprised too, it trickles in there where one pitch can affect them. So it's not just high schoolers in Little League. But I would say that it comes with experience. It comes with learning a little bit here and there, like understanding, like, wow, that fourth pitch of the bullpen really upset me, and the last 16 pitches, it's like, did I get any better after that fourth pitch? It's like, what did it do to affect me? And so it's like, okay, like, am I going to let it happen again? But it still trickles into pro ball as well. Obviously, it's probably a smaller clip where we can fix it in about 3 or 4 pitches. But even then, like, that's one of my favorite parts about working with these young players that are on their journey, is I'm being able to be like, we wasted 10 pitches of that bullpen.
Sure.
We wasted it together. And sometimes I don't say anything because I want them to, at the end, I'll be like, how'd it feel? We talk. And they're like, well, this. And I'm like, what do you think? I'm like, well, after pitch 11, what did we get accomplished?
Sure.
Because you were huffing and puffing and doing everything. You let it take away. And this is just a bullpen setting. So which is great, you should set the bar high. You should have all this stuff going. And you should, because your practice runs into the game. But if one pitch in the bullpen happens, what's happened in the game when, we have a shift on and you beat a guy and it goes that way? Like, is it going to, that's how I think it starts to trickle. So if you practice, you're so hard on yourself about executing every pitch. If one pitch in the bullpen gets it, and this is a situation we can control, when we get on the game,
yeah,
we can't. There's so many things we can't. Once it leaves our hand, we can't do a darn thing about it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think talking about the guys who are stronger than that is like they want to take that let's say negative performance, like not the pitch they wanted to execute. That's fine, but okay, I want to use that to make this next one better and learn from it versus letting it ruin the rest of a bullpen or whatnot. And I think that just comes down to having that mental strength and having that. I think like a lot of our guys, especially ones who do work with, they have like a plan for each pitch and a mental kind of like checklist that they go through. And when you have that in place and you're able to do that, you're able to look at each pitch and then use it as feedback so that you go to the next one. We kind of talked to them about, we did talk about it on the last podcast, and it's something that we can not necessarily, don't want to go down this rabbit hole yet, but like in terms of using technology, it's that like, okay, this is just the outcome. We got to look at what the income was. Well, what did we do what that made that pitch happen, and use that as information to move on to the next one.
Absolutely. And I think that's the great part about bullpens as well, is that especially with technology, is you have the eye test, you have all your checkpoints internally, you throw the pitch, it is where it is. And then at the end, we look back and okay, what was different about this one than the last one? So we go to the field part, but we get the exact data of how it looked differently. Now, if there's a big discrepancy, whether it's the release, the tilt, the spin, whatever, what have you, then we can really be like, okay, now we know what we're doing. If it's the exact same thing, that the pitch you executed before, understand that sometimes you go through your checkpoints and you do everything right, and sometimes you miss.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just, if you can find a pitcher who's executed every pitch he's supposed to, even the best ones in the world, I would love to meet him.
Sure, me too. No, absolutely. And I think it's easy to go into those negative, I'm sure we've all had them. It's just finding ways to catch yourself, reset, and be able to go on. And just for you personally, was there anything that you used for yourself to kind of bring yourself back in, Obviously, like you just said, not everyone has a perfect bullpen or a perfect outing. What are some of the things you like to use that helped you?
I think I used that early stage in my young career, even rolling through the minor leagues and even getting to the big leagues at this point too. Is when something wouldn't go, I would, I always wanted to keep a calm demeanor on the outside, but on the inside, I would go back and like really just almost excessively evaluate my outing too much to a point where it wasn't fair. So like that's why I was like, you need to look in the mirror. You can't just say that everything wrong you did. You should always be like, I could have got better here. This is what I did well. So it was just kind of that, and it took me a little bit too. And then the biggest thing for me was I always felt like if I went out there and I attacked and I was aggressive in the zone and I wanted pitchers or I wanted hitters to make swings on me, if I got beat and I just got whacked around the yard a little bit, I could sleep better on my pillow. If I went out there and tried to stay away from contact, not used it, like really became this thing where I basically said, like, the way I verbalized it was, well, I was just being a little like come off and tell one of my pitching coaches really helped me get through this. After a tough outing, I came in, I was like, I was just being too fine there. I was really trying to, and he goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. He goes, that's just another way of saying I was scared of contact. I wasn't aggressive towards hitters. I was giving them too much credit. So he flipped the script right there with me, where it was just like, because you can say that I was too fine, I was trying to be too perfect. If you really think about it, you don't want to get hit hard. So you're right now saying like if I don't make, but there were so many times I look back where I was convicted when I threw, and I threw it, and it wasn't the spot I got, and I beat a guy, but because I was convicted before I threw it, I won. There's so many times where I was like, I don't want to get hit too hard, and I babied it, and I still got to the corner, and it still got whack for a double. So for me, it's just the way that I kind of changed the verbiage, changed the way I went about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think. And the one thing I would say we've seen a lot of success with some of our guys is one, obviously, one trusting that, and especially at a high school level, things like that. I mean, they're not going to have a lot of power more often than not. And so, like, you can't pitch scared, one, or afraid to contact, but two, you have to trust in yourself that my stuff's better than his stuff, and so that and hitters 7 out of 10 times, if they're really, really good, are going to get themselves out as it is anyways, or get out. I shouldn't say get themselves out, but so you're already in the odds are already in your favor.
Exactly. And I'm a big proponent of like hitting is hard. Like I always tell guys, like, especially during the season, I'm like, watch our batting practice. You're out here shagging. I'm like, watch these guys that are getting stuff lobbed over the middle. Count how many balls that you see, the ones where they hit over the fence, they rail in the gap. I'm like, watch how many they roll over and pop up, even on the guy just grooving stuff in.
Sure.
So, but on the flip side too, like pitching is hard too. So let's not create like this whole thing, but hitting is really, really hard.
Absolutely.
So it's like, how much credit are you going to give? Obviously, some hitters are better. Certain situations call for different ways to go about it. That's kind of as the game progresses for you. But hitting's really hard, and so is pitching. But as soon as you start giving too much credit before you even throw the pitch, you're already facing an uphill battle.
100%. And this one definitely, you don't see it as much in the minor leagues, but in the big leagues, you see it obviously. Throwing back-to-back days, how do you get accustomed to that? How do you get used to that? I know typically until you are close to being a big leaguer, that's when you start to maybe see it or experience it. But once you did get there, and I don't know, maybe you did throw more than back-to-back days. I know before, probably the last few years, guys did throw 3-4 days in a row. It wasn't unheard of. So, yeah, just what are some things you did to help get yourself prepared and ready to do that, and as much physically and mentally?
Well, I think in college we were allowed to every day, just with the Friday, Saturday, Sunday series. Our head coach at the time, he was really aware of how much you had thrown the day before he went out there and just abused you. So I got a little bit of a glimpse of it, but not a ton in college. But when I got drafted by the Giants and started to go from there, they let you start doing it even at the level I'm coaching now, but it had to be 20 pitches or less you threw the day before. So your success or your ability to be available the next day was based off of your efficiency the day before. But as far as how it felt that first day too, when you're young and everything like that, it was more or less what I found out, especially because I had a couple times where I went 3 in a row and whatnot. For me, it was just, okay, the next day I felt okay, but my catch play was even more important and everything like that with how I was doing. But when I was called upon in the bullpen, my normal bullpen routine, if I had thrown the day before or even thrown 2 days before that, it was dumbed down to understand the amount of bullets I needed to have out there. It was, how can I get my arm going? Do I feel pretty good? It usually took a little bit less because my body was still recuperating and whatnot. But it was based on the way I played catch. Every day felt like I had a set way I wanted to play catch. But as a reliever, as a starter, you can really set that routine.
Sure.
But as a reliever, you're going off of your availability and everything like that. And if you're active and you're on the roster in the major leagues, you're available.
100%.
Even though we're going to stay away from them, the 18th inning comes in the World Series, you're going to go. So for me, it was just, what does it feel like today? Today I want to do this, but I threw the last 2 days in a row, but I still need to move my arm. So maybe I'm at 65 feet today. I wanted to go to 90 feet. But if I felt good enough to go to 90, but just to move the arm a little bit, then I moved the arm a little bit. So it was basically, I had to start recognizing what I needed to be ready to go that night. And then my bullpen routine going into the game had to be surrounded by, when I go out there, the most important thing is when the lights are on. So I don't need to throw my normal stuff here because I've just done it the last 2 days.
Sure.
I need to listen to my body.
And then, was there any things that you did on the, let's say, the training side or any of that stuff that to help you kind of, and obviously outside, I guess outside your normal, lifting, things like that?
Yeah, I had my own like arm care routine. The Jaeger bands were big for me. I used those from the moment I started to the day. Every day that was a thing. When it came to a day where I was a little bit tender and even going through injuries and knowing the places that were the sorest on me, I always felt like when I hurt in my lat that was what I knew I threw the ball the correct way because of the finish and I was out in front. There was no pain on the internal side, inside by the elbow or up in the shoulder area, so I knew that I was finishing the way I was supposed to finish. So I would have the trainers every now and then. I got big into the scraping, worked for me, and cupping every now and then worked for me as well. I think nowadays there's so much more stuff out there. It's unbelievable with everything.
Sure.
And I think it's important to understand what each does, but understanding that scraping might work for me, but it's not going to work for you. So it's you figure out how do you feel after coming out of it, how you respond the next day. Now, the best part is you have so many gadgets at your thing, but you can also go down a hole where you feel like you really have to, I have to use this and this and this. And I tell guys too that I get who are 19 years old, I'm like, you're using too many gadgets at 19 years old right now to be getting ready to go. In my mind, I'm like, if you're using it just because they're there, that's one thing. But if you really need it, go ahead. But if you're this young and you need this much stuff as you go down, you should be able to have your own routine and then use some of the stuff at your will. But you shouldn't need all of it all the time at a young age because now you're kind of creating a crutch for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think same thing we talk to guys about here. There's some of the recovery methods and things are great, and we obviously have them and use them with our guys. But yeah, if you need 15 different gadgets and you need a hour-long prep before you can even get moving and going through each gadget, it's just not, it's not realistic. It's not going to help you, and you're more relying on those than actually using them to actually help you. And
I feel like 80% of 80, maybe a little bit more depending, you can do on your own, whether it's lacrosse ball, just specifying stuff that you need to yourself, and then use the other 20% when necessary.
Absolutely.
But I think that's part of your routine, taking responsibility and accountability.
Absolutely. And kind of touched on it a little bit with your lat. And so it's kind of the mindset of going through an injury and how you kept yourself kind of going forward. I know for our guys, and it's something I talk to them a lot about all the time with guys who have had the injuries is, just being able to just attack the day in front of you. Don't look too far ahead, especially for the guys who are going through a longer injury like a TJ or things like that where you're out for a year plus. If you're looking 9 months down the road, you're going to be, one, putting yourself in a bad mental spot, and two, feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and being really able to just attack each day. But what are some of the things that helped you get through those days and that worked for you.
I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of it. I feel like because especially the guys that know that it's going to be a 12 to 18 month process, it's real easy to sit there and like look, okay, well, so that means July of whatever I'm going to be back. Like you start looking that way, it takes away from the work. I think if you get lost in the day-to-day stuff, you get lost in the way that you stretch, but being around other ball players while you're doing it, I think is a big thing because there's other guys going through it too. You create the camaraderie, you create the teamwork, but you just checking boxes every day. And everyone knows you're dying to get back on the field, but your body's trying to heal itself after you've had probably a surgical or whatever layoff. So by you consistently doing your rehab, making sure every rep is absolutely destroyed, I think even watching baseball on TV or watching your buddies play or something like that, going out there and being part of it, even if you can't participate, is really good mentally for you as well because you're seeing the guys out there. It might hurt a little bit being like, I wish I could be out there, but you're also gaining knowledge. You can watch stuff. You can watch stuff on TV. You can watch how pitchers go about it. You can watch how other guys are attacking. You can start playing the game. How would I go about it? So right now, while you physically can't be out there, you're mentally getting ahead of guys who just walk out of rehab and do other stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. But the day-to-day thing, understanding that it is a process, you start counting the chickens too early. It's going to be really tough. Doing it day by day, being around with guys, still talking ball because you love the game, and you probably miss it so much you realize how much that you missed it and how much more you really loved it. So by you not going and seeing your buddies play or watching more baseball or just you can get mentally stronger while you're getting physically stronger. Because you can't have the physical reps, but you can take mental reps.
100%. And I was talking to one of our guys who had TJ, and actually I think you were just talking to him downstairs as well. But something he said is like, and he's a guy who just absolutely like loves the training, doesn't let anything slip. Like he's making sure he's doing everything possible all the time. And he was saying like, you don't really like, he's like, I used to love training and I still love training, but you don't realize how much you love the actual playing and until you're out of it for as long as until you've been out of it for a year. And so I think it might even help you not this isn't the way you want to find out, but you really find out how much you actually love the game.
Absolutely. And it's the hard lessons, and that's why we talk about baseball of all professional sports being the longest season, the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of it. This is part of it. I mean, to be honest with you, you're lucky if you can get through your whole career, however long it's going to be, without an injury.
100%.
And so you got to accept that as long as you physically do everything you can, but you can't let it break you mentally. So you have to create little victories and little games in your head almost to still be competitive while you can't go out and compete.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So kind of changing gears a little bit, I think just talking about, every time you go out there and you're out there on the mound or at bat or anything, every day you're not going to feel your best. Like there's days you're going to feel great and there's days you're not going to feel great. It's, the ability to still perform even when you don't feel your best. Those days where you didn't feel you're at your best, what are some things that you did to still get through those days and still have success?
I think my main focus was I never wanted the hitter or the visiting dugout to see I wasn't sharp. If I go and I throw a pitch and all of a sudden in between pitches I'm like showing them mechanically what I'm feeling or like, oh, I didn't feel this. Now I was sitting there like maybe they were nervous to face me before. They're not anymore because he's out of whack.
Sure.
So if I started to show that I wasn't sharp, like just outgoing, and I might not be, but as soon as I show it before I even, just because of one pitch, like that could create huge things. Now you got guys like, I don't really want to face him. I haven't been that good against him, or he's kind of nasty. Now guys are like, he doesn't feel right. He's going to fall behind. He's already worried about his mechanic. He's doing something after every pitch with something. His body language is starting to suffer. The way his mound presence is going away. So now I'm giving them, like we said, hitting's already hard enough, but now I'm giving them easy fuel. So for me, it was when I missed with a pitch, and there were some times I missed pretty big, more than I wanted to, but there'd be some times I let one rip and it kind of buzzed something or it hit the backstop, and And I would just kind of smirk, and they'd be like, this dude's kind of a little crazy. Like I want to create, like, not like I'm going to throw at your head, but hey, dude, don't dig in too much, or this guy just missed big and he doesn't care. So it was the way that I went about it externally that I think if I walked out there externally, standing up tall with my chest out, just falling in love with the competition, that I could, even on a day where I didn't feel that good, internally it can change the way that I attacked. It could change the way that I felt about myself. So I always wanted to compete. I always wanted to do that, but I never wanted to give the opponent a bigger edge than they already have.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think that creating that fear, or don't ever take away that if a hitter has that fear in you from the pitching side, like you don't want to give them anything that takes that away from them. The one other thing, this kind of another thing within just mindset, and we talked, I think you hit on it a little bit in the first podcast, but something definitely see just here and from our top guys to our lower level guys or high school guys is just how they go about their business. I think, for example, we had a guy who was just drafted this past year, was meticulous about every little thing that he did and made sure he was on top of his training, nutrition, arm care, even his mental game. And he knew what his goal was, what he was trying to do, and he made sure to attack it every day. He would call me and like, do I need to do more? Am I doing enough? Blah, 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 blah. Like, just wanted to make sure he was on top of everything. And honestly, there was times where he was doing more than he probably needed. But the point is, like, that mentality of being like laser focused, attention to detail on what he was doing is definitely something we see that separates this guy we're talking about, or our big leaguers, versus even like the minor leaguers or our high school guys. And just that how those guys, that's just part of their mental preparation, is just to go about how they go about their business and making sure that they're not leaving any stones unturned. And you kind of talked about it with when we were talking about like the Canes and the Lincecums, about how they had this routine and they just kind of were just so laser focused on what they're doing. And I think from what I've seen is that's part of their mental preparation to go do that stuff. Like if they don't do that, they don't feel mentally prepared, or they're not, they feel not confident kind of in a way. Obviously they're confident in their stuff, but that's part of their mental preparation, is to do their physical stuff a certain way. And just kind of some of the things that you've seen and thoughts, agree. Yeah,
I think you couldn't. I don't think we could be more on the same page if we tried. But I think I kind of led into it last time with, the best pitchers I've ever played with and against and watched. Like, they were almost boring to a fact where they did the same thing every day. And while you're saying too, like, while they're doing all this, because what in my mind, what you do in the dark shows up in the light. Like, so if you even like if we dumb it down to like your beautiful facility here, and you give a guy, this many sets with this many reps, like, you can't physically watch all the guys at one time, make sure they're doing sets of 10. One guy could do 9, but he's the one who knows he did 9, and you could watch him doing it. But so it's like, how much pride do you take in what you do every day? So if you're already starting to cut corners just in something as simple as that, how do you expect to not cut corners on other places? So in my mind, with these guys, with what they did, is while they were these great, they had these great long careers, they are in lore of baseball fans everywhere. Mentally, what it did for them to do their routine every day, that started to sharpen everything that they do. So by them knowing that they already did their routine, they stepped on the field, they did everything. They've already outworked you. They've already done the routine every single day, especially on those days that where travel was a little bit tougher, when they were tired, where they had a really bad outing and they were in their feelings about it. They did their routine. And so it started to mentally sharpen them moving forward. And then, like, when they got on the mound physically, I think it ends up showing up in the results after that, because even after bad ones, everybody works hard after bad outings when they're stinking. Sure. Everyone's the first one in the door. But the guys that are like dominating, and they're still doing it every day because they're not just like, because there's days where you're just in an absolute run of your life where you show up and you're better, and it might go for a month, it might go for 2 outings, I don't know, I'm not, but as soon as you be like, I got it figured out, it's going to kick you in the teeth. But those guys, when they were good, when they were at their best and they were on top of the game at the highest level, they were still there doing the routine every single day. They didn't let a little bit of success take away from what they did, and I think that's why they made when they got into ruts, they got out of it quicker. I think it's not all just routine, but I think routine is the biggest part of any athlete. I think it's the foundation of every single athlete.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, baseball players are creatures of habit, and the more habits and sometimes I honestly think, not to veer off, but sometimes I've seen guys have too many habits where it gets in their way because they feel like because sometimes things aren't going to go right or go exactly as planned, and a rain delay, whatever, any little things like that, and can get away. But back to the point is, like, when you have a routine and you know what you're supposed to do and a plan each day, it just it takes away the guesswork, takes away you feeling like, am I doing everything I need to do? And then 2, when you just stick to it and don't let yourself, after those 24 hours, if you had success, you just get back to your plan, your routine, and get you ready for the next, especially for a start or the next outing. But within that, for you, obviously, I guess, is for you, some of the guys maybe that come up already have that, and they're guys that are kind of excelling and fast tracking through the system. But also, have you seen guys that maybe weren't there, but then were able to, obviously with some coaching, talking with them, getting to know them, installing good habits, see them make that change and then take off?
Yeah, I think especially on the coaching side of it, like my biggest goal is to connect with these guys and make us collaborate and create a relationship to where they know that I'm out there for them to help them out. So if I give them some sort of routine, from our routine, as far as how they body prep, to the way they play catch, to their bullpens, to their arm care, to their nutrition, like, we have it all encompassed with them. That's what we already have this huge bubble of stuff we want them to do. That being said, we constantly start talking to them and stuff like that. Like, I make suggestions, they make decisions. I think the way that routines, kind of the guys that are maybe a little bit like, oh, I'm good, this is how I've always done it, I'm okay. And even if you remind them, it's going to be a little bit different from college or from what you've done before. It's a little bit different of a beast. Once you make that, honestly, sometimes it takes getting your teeth kicked in a little bit to be like, wow. And you don't want it to come to that. But also, too, you understand, too, if it's only a couple weeks where they do it and then they realize it, that's a learning experience. That's part of the process. Everyone always says, trust the process, trust the process. The process isn't always pretty. Sure. Everyone always says, like, oh, like, if I do this. But alluding back to what you were saying, too, alluding back there, it's like, also with the routine and everything else, if you start to, well, this is my routine, it really works, and you have one bad outing, and now we're going to ditch 7 and put 7 new things in the routine, it's about tweaking will happen. But if we're always going to go back to the drawing board, whether it's delivery, whether it's routine, whether it's pitch, arsenal, like, if you don't really buy in and go, like, there's going to be times, even when we do everything right, it's not going to be your day. But if we can tweak a little bit, but if we constantly are trying to recreate and not, we need to have our pillars that we believe in and do all the time. And then we can tweak as you get older, as we know how your body moves, as we do all this other stuff. But I think that's the most beneficial things. But sometimes they just kind of got to get their butts kicked a little bit.
100%. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you also, something you hit on there that was really important, especially from a mindset stuff, and something we talk to, especially, it happens definitely more with the younger guys, but like, wanting to make a new change every bullpen or every time they throw, and you can never get comfortable within what you're trying to work on, or 2, some things aren't going to click right away. And so if you have that, if you're one, and from a mindset, don't trust something every time, one, and then 2, if you're constantly trying to change something, you're never going to feel comfortable mentally. Like, because you're never going to be able to give yourself time to figure something out. And the guys that do, I guess, when they're struggling with something and they do they figure it out over time. Those are the guys that even feel stronger about it because they learn, they had a process and like, okay, this works. And now I'm like in a much better spot.
Exactly. I mean, I can give you 6 different changeup grips right now, and you can go through all of them, and one of them might light up the board beautifully, and we're like, that's it. That's the nastiest changeup we've seen since you insert the name. But then the next 4 you throw could be really bad. And now you're like, okay, that didn't work. Let's go to the next one. It's like, well, so like, sometimes it's not just flipping a grip in your hand or just I saw a really good one and then it's all good and then I'm going to bail on it. But it's not their fault either. Like they're in a day and age where they can really look at grips and they get more at their fingertips than ever. And it's easy. Everyone always wants a quick fix. The reality of the situation is while there might be some tweaks, the routine, the hard work, the consistency, the repeatability is the quick fix. Or it's not the quick fix, but that is the fix.
Yeah.
We could change a grip a little bit to help you out, enhance, but that grip might not come around for a little bit too. It might take a little while, but as we keep progressing. But everyone wants a quick fix for right reasons. You just think, oh, I just throw this grip in your hand and it's going to be the nastiest pitch. I wish it was that easy because if it was, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be charging, had my own facility and be like, I can put a grip in your hand and make you an all-star. That's just not the reality of the situation. Sure. The reality is it takes hard work. It takes repeatability. It takes adjustment. It takes you learning how to do something in order for you to see the finished product.
And then from a mental standpoint, I think it's also having the mental ability to like understand that versus fighting it. Like, okay, it's going to take a second for me to figure this out. We're going to work through it all. And when you do that, then, or you give yourself the ability to do that, that's when you're able to find what really, that repeatability.
And in my mind too, that kind of like, if you do that, if you go down, if you consistently go and you go through ups and downs and you get through it and there it is, and that becomes part of who you are. Like, I think you gain more mental fortitude that way too, because you didn't just give in right after because of one thing. Like you're starting to sharpen and harden the way that you go about things because you didn't just run as soon as it got tough. You stuck through it and now it's part of your stuff. And I think it creates that mental fortitude that we're talking about.
100%. One last thing I would say one last thing or topic to talk about is, and this is more from the mental aspect, the old school versus the new school. We touched on that a little bit last time, but versus just, I think the old school, was, just kind of like grind it out. And I think now it is like, let's look at all the data. Let's see how we can use, but understanding how to use that data from a proper standpoint, meaning like, okay, this is information. I'm going to use this information to make my next pitch, next swing, versus kind of like we were talking about earlier with the bullpen stuff of like not let yourself go down a rabbit hole or just be mad about one pitch and take you down and not be able to be effective the rest of the bullpen. Here with the technology, using it as a way to help you and use it as a way to like, okay, shows me this, I'm going to make this adjustment. Not, that information on the board is not what we wanted. And now you're going down a horrible rabbit hole. Is like using that as a positive or something to learn from.
Yeah, I think especially one of my favorite things to do when we do technology-based bullpens, which is all of them, but when we're really trying to focus on something, I like to give whatever pitch we're throwing a range that we're okay with. Not just it has to be this, because if it's within a few whatever points that we're looking at, I think it's okay. There's small tweaks to be made. But if we're getting drastic changes, I think that's where we can kind of really, okay, where are we going mechanically? So I think to sit there and say it has to hit a certain number, has to be a certain spin, we have to have a certain thing. If we take it too far that way, but if you give yourself a small range, it's okay if I miss here or there, but that means my release is getting close. Or when I do it that way, I know what it feels like, and then we go from there. So for me, it's more like, let's use it as, like, if we're getting like these crazy reads all over the plots, then we know we're not doing the same thing. But if we're within this degree of missing, we're right there. And then when we do miss this way, how did that feel and then you can revert back to the elite one that we threw that we love. What did that feel like? what were you saying to yourself? Where did it feel like out of the hand? Where were your target sites? There's so many different things that we can decipher from there. But I don't want, well, it's that was three inches of vert off. Like we got, it's not working. It's like, no, I'll give you the 3 inches.
Yeah.
I'll give you the 3. That's fine. Like, let's not get so crazy about not hitting this number every single time. Let's look at the consistency of the miss. Let's look at when we miss, how bad is it? And then we can go to there, and then it's execution based. So I really think it's beneficial and it's crucial. But like giving yourself some leeway too, not knowing that has to hit that number every single time, because that's just not a reality.
Absolutely. Yeah, and understanding, like you said, okay, I'm within the 3 inches of this that I want to be. It's like, okay, if I'm in the right mental space, I'm like, all right, I'm going to make a slight adjustment in this and now see if this helps me get closer versus, yeah, if it's, okay, it wasn't what I wanted and now just everything kind of goes out the plan and just throw everything away. And I think one thing, as great as technology is, and yeah, we have Edgertronic and we can see these grips and where hand is at release or the numbers. I think when you're in the right space mentally and you're in like really locked in and not letting yourself kind of go down these bad rabbit holes, is the feel. Like, okay, and I think one of my favorite questions I ask our pitchers or hitters is like, how did that feel? What did you feel on that pitch? And then we can look at the results and, okay, I want you to just try to make this slight adjustment. I just want you to feel this and then see if we get closer to that. But if you're not there mentally and you can't get to where you're feeling what you're doing, then it's really hard to
I think
make that
I think that's the number one question I ask, whether I do lessons now in the off season with kids from 10 to pro ball guys at 24. I think my number one asked question is, what did that feel like? What did you feel right there? So, because if I almost prefer it too when they look back at me and they say, I don't even know, because at least we can start there. Okay, but that's where the communication and the collaboration and the avenue we walk down is together. Or it's like I felt 4 or 5 different things. I'm like, whoa. We shouldn't be like, you're trying to go execute a pitch and you're feeling 5 different things in your delivery. I know you're trying to tell me what I want to hear, but what did that feel like? Or let's base it down. Like, before you threw the pitch, what were you thinking? You're like, I just don't want to miss here. Now we can dumb it down even that way. So there's different way, whether it's physically or mentally. But I couldn't agree more. What did that feel like? How did you feel? And then we can have the back and forth. And then I think we start making up some really good ground. And I know now where they're coming from, whether it's the confidence level, whether it's they're so focused on one part of their delivery that it's taking away from everything else that they do. So now we can kind of, dictate the bullpen or dictate the way that we move away from that to get out of that prison of where you're at right now with whatever it is in your delivery, whether it's mental or physical. And then that's how we get better. But there has to be that open, and there has to be that, how did it feel? It felt great. Okay, well, you just hit the backstop on a fly 4 times in a row. Like, we got to figure something out too. Like, let's have some fun with it. But like, I don't need you to tell me what I want to hear. I want you to tell me what exactly is going on, because that's the only way we're going to make progress.
Absolutely. Well, I think we hit on everything that I wanted to hit on. 1 and 2 gives our especially the audience that we're mostly gonna be watching this at least early on, the high school and the parents, high school kids and parents, and I think it gives them some really good insight on how to, 1, give them a game plan, 2, understand the importance of this, and 3, it's okay to like work on the stuff, and it is something that should be worked on. I think obviously everyone does the skill work. Majority of the guys are doing the skill work. Majority of the guys are doing the weight training stuff. But the guys who I think really separate themselves are the guys who are really hammering, obviously we didn't talk about this, but the nutrition side and the mental side. And when you have those things on top of the skill work and the weight room stuff, you really kind of make yourself a full holistic approach athlete, and what kind of take those next steps.
Yeah, and I'd say for the audience that you're having as well, especially with, the high school kids or even some 8th graders that are going through there, that mistakes are going to come at a very high clip for this. Like, that's how they're going to get better. So for me, it's after an outing, good or bad, it's just let them come home, making sure physically they feel okay. But sometimes letting them sleep on it and then having the conversation the following day, even with the young, because they're living and dying. I know that the parents are living and dying off of every single pitch, and they should be. That's their kid out there.
Yeah.
And I live and die off the kids that I coach right now because they're out there, and I just couldn't. Like, I want it so bad for them, but I want them to be able to feel like they can come back and we can have a conversation where some emotion's taken out of it, and we can have a little bit more, but understanding that we don't need to decipher every single pitch that exact evening. If he wants to do it that way, go ahead. But also understanding that sometimes, like, everybody needs to get away from it a little bit, like, emotionally too, because if it in that case, but knowing that there's going to be a ton of failure that comes with it, and making sure that their love for the game and their willingness to want to keep getting better and better is always there. I think that's you should put at the forefront.
Yeah, and if used right, failure can be the best teacher. So
absolutely,
you know,
I think you learn more. I think you learn way more through. That's what I try and tell the guys I coach now. I learn when they ask me about stories about playing and stuff like that. I try and give them the most stories I tell them are the ones where they weren't as flattering for me on the mound, because I wish I would have learned some stuff earlier. I wish I would have been through it, but that's where I learned the most about myself. When you're out there throwing the you know what out of it, it's easy to walk around with your chest out. It's like when you're getting your teeth kicked in, like, how are you standing on that mound? Like, what did you learn that day? How are you going to go about it the day after and moving forward? So I think failure is by far the best teacher in this game. And it also kind of tests you mentally and the mental side of it that way. It's like, did one outing, like I always tell these guys, one pitch doesn't make you an all-star, and it doesn't make you an automatic release.
Absolutely.
So, like, why are we living and dying off of one pitch? Like, we can always go back to that one ball that was hitting the gap that lost the game. It's like there's always something that comes before it. It's that last pitch is what everyone remembers. But it's what did you do those few pitches before that or after, like, that kind of dictate what happened. So I just think that living and dying off one pitch, especially in a sport that's based off of a marathon, not a sprint, is really, really tough, and that can also affect the way that you mentally approach it and the way you think about yourself as a pitcher and everything like that.
Absolutely, and that's a huge piece of it is just that how you feel, like we talked about confidence. So I think this has been great. It was fun to do again. Yep. It was always fun talking baseball with you, and appreciate you being on again.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. Thanks, guys, for listening. As always, you can find us at rossistraining.com, on Instagram at Rossi's Training. Till the next show, thanks for listening.